G'day and goodbye. In John Wyndham's post-nuclear tale, The Chrysalids, radiation is causing birth defects. The fundamentalist religious society leaves mutant babies exposed to die, but some normal-looking kids have developed psi power, a telepathic underground, radio-free brainwave. A Canticle for Leibowitz by Walter Miller Jr. Post-nuclear dark age, monks preserving history, but they screw up. Blueprints become holy scripture, even the ones with the coffee mug rings on them.
I'm Garfield Reeve-Stevens.
I'm Judith Reeve-Stevens.
And we write science textbooks and science fiction.
Together.
And alone.
Darn British plugs. I get American plugs. Ah, here we go, here we go. Aha! Ah, hello, Garth. Hello, Judy. How you guys doing?
Just great.
Hi there, Commander.
Now, I know nothing is unusual in science fiction, but is it a little strange for a husband and wife to be writing together?
It happens. Jan and Chris Morris, they write together. There's some, let's see, Peter Morwood and
Diane Duane.
Right.
For Star Trek.
Though they don't combine their names on those books because they want to keep them, they develop other readership. And so they want to make sure when people buy a particular book with one person's name on it, it's going to be that type of book that people are buying.
Now, how do you guys write together? Does Judy take the right hand of the typewriter and you take the left hand, or how does it work?
Well,
we
generally
write
every
other
word.
Unless somebody wants to add some detail.
Or someone has a good
end.
idea, yes.
So you're in the room physically together and one's pacing and one's typing?
We used to work in separate rooms, and just recently we tried working in the same room. It worked out just fine.
One of the things that we did in our Star Trek novel is sort of operating as apologists for the original series. The one thing you don't see in the original series is artificial intelligences on working for the Federation.
Right.
And so what we've done for Memory Prime is we've explained why you don't see artificial intelligence working for the Federation. There's a good reason for it. The real reason is, of course, nobody thought about it that much in 1967.
Now, the artwork on the Memory Prime changed, did it not?
Yes, we now hold a collector's version of that cover.
Ooh, so you can mortgage your house in 20 years with it.
Well, I hope so.
What happened?
Well, we got a printer's proof from the publisher, and with the number 43 on it, because that was the number our book was to be. And but before it could even be printed, we found that Paramount had asked for changes on it. And
what kind of changes? What were the
Gar,
changes?
you might
on the
describe
book
them.
Well, this is the one thing when you're dealing with an existing universe, especially one that's owned by Paramount. They have incredible control over it, and rightly so. But after Pocketbooks had paid a fortune to have these finished covers made up with the embossed type and the special gold ink, the Paramount executives looked at it and they said, Spock looks a bit stunned. He's supposed to be a Vulcan. So they said, close his mouth.
And that was the only direction. Close that man's mouth. They did. And our book also made it to number 42 with a closed mouth.
By the 1960s, the end of the world, Armageddon, and the apocalypse was pretty old news in the world of science fiction, but in comic book land, it was still hot news. That's because comic books tended to deal with sort of local skirmishes rather than all-out war, because they had to fit it all into one comic book. And to do the end of the world, the apocalypse, the destruction of the universe, you really needed 3 issues. 4 if there were a lot of ads for sea monkeys. One of the first apocalypse stories was in Strange Tales, a Nick Fury story called Today Earth Died. An alien gives humanity the prism of miracles. Turns out to be a world-killing machine. Twist ending, it's all a dream, Bobby. Real letdown. Over in the Fantastic Four, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were experimenting with longer stories. In that classic series, FF 48 to 50, a herald of a godlike alien arrives to prepare us for our eventual destruction. Natch, we don't take this too well. The herald, a.k.a. the Silver Surfer, joins forces with us and convinces the alien not to suck the energy out of our solar system. Thank you very much. In Doctor Strange, issues 10 to 13, the world is completely destroyed. And then it's recreated so no one notices the difference. See, that's the problem with comics. If you 86 the Earth, what are you going to do for next month's issue?
I still have copies of the original 6-book series.
The 13th and final chapter, Rocketing to Earth.
Give me a hand, Doc. Here, off you go.
hear that?
Why, it's Prince Baron. A prisoner.
He wasn't in the rocket ship after all.
No.
Come on, back here, hide.
Walt Simonson's Thor series used the Norse myth of Ragnarok, which is the legend of the destruction of the Norse gods, as the basis of a year-long story that climaxed in the actual destruction of the world. Since the Norse gods were actually displaced in legend, Walt didn't have to make it a dream or completely recreate them or say it was another parallel universe or anything cheap. By the way, check out Walt Simonson's signature. It's a dinosaur. Walt is a paleontologist. He loves paleontology, which is the science of life forms that lived long ago, like Shriners, stuff like that.
Here is how the dinosaur extinction catastrophe might have unfolded. First, an explosion, greater than all the nuclear bombs in the world. The heat of the explosion would cause a firestorm that would sweep across whole continents, turning forests and jungles into fiery infernos and wreaking havoc with the life that lived within them.
The dinosaurs faced Armageddon, and they lost. Oh, stupid dinosaurs, they're extinct and we're not. The dinosaurs were around for 150 million years. Human beings have been around for about 1 million years. Do you think we're going to last another 149 million years? We could learn a thing or two about survival from the good old dinosaurs.
With much less sun, the Earth has cooled. The dark vapors that cover the sky provide nothing but gloom. The explosion that has rocked the Earth burnt many of its forests, wrapped it in a shroud of black that has withered growth and starved much of the remaining life, was the result of an intruding meteorite. All of this happened millions of years ago. A modern thermonuclear war would have a similar result.
Here's a great coffee table book. Just screw in the legs and it's all set. It's all about the dinosaurs. It shows how they looked, how they lived, and how they loved. The author's favorite extinction theory is that a comet collided with the Earth and caused a veil of dust to create a quick and rather dramatic change in the weather, sort of like a nuclear winter. The dinosaurs couldn't adapt, and they died off. Nuclear winter is a theory that says after World War III, all the dust and the smoke and the bits of us that are flying around the world are going to keep the sun out and cause a global cooling.
The natural power of the universe is harnessed in the new atomic bomb. Its tremendous possibilities are explained in this chart. The mightiest, most destructive bombs yet produced, such as England's terrifying Grand Slam, weighing 11 tons, are puny midgets compared with the new atomic wonder. One of the first to smash the atom was Dr. Ernest Lawrence of California, inventor of the cyclotron, the atom-smashing machine. With global war, the government stepped into the picture.
If the rest of the world is now busy discovering the threat to the environment and the threat from nuclear weapons, in science fiction, it's really old news. They say an optimist is someone who doesn't have all the facts in. Well, science fiction has been talking about Armageddon since the 1930s, and for science fiction and comic books, the facts are all in. The 1980s here now, there are no more plucky bands of survivors who rebuild America. 1983 movie Testament, everyone just dies. 1984 movie Threads, everyone just dies. 1986 animated cartoon When the Wind Blows, everyone just dies. And now it's 1989, Miracle Mile.
I got it! We won! 52! Out of my way!
Apocalypse, I remain optimistic. Oh, I'm convinced we can stop the trillion-dollar-a-year arms race. I think we can get rid of the world's 50,000 nuclear warheads of varying sizes. I think we'll figure out a way to overcome the greenhouse effect and the changes in the global climate. I think we'll be able to settle all the religious wars that are raging all over the world and may soon start raging with nuclear weapons. And I think we're going to find a way to ban chemical weapons and to ban germ warfare. And we'll fix the ozone layer with magic things. And then we'll stop the Earth from heating up or else cooling down, depending on which way it's going to go. And we'll get a jar and contain all those toxins and chemicals that are lying around here, there, everywhere. And then we'll feed all the hungry, and we'll solve all of the world's problems, and we'll clean up the environment, and we'll purify the water, and we'll reforest all those barren hills that are lying around. And I think there's going to be no problem getting El Nino to flow the right way and to save the starvation. And Ethiopia is going to be fine. Stick around. We're going to turn it into like Edwards Gardens. You know what I mean? It's going to be great. And hey, I think we're all going to live in peace finally. I think, hey, yes, we've got nuclear weapons, but we're going to find a way to use nuclear power. Okay, forget Chernobyl, forget 3 Mile. It's going to happen. And if you send a check in, money, a box of money, just anything. Failing that, dig a ditch in your yard, put a board over top and get under it.
We're on a terminally ill planet, you know that. And we are about to destroy ourselves. And when a patient comes into the emergency room who's terminally ill, we don't say, well, that patient's terminally ill, take them straight to the mortuary. We put the patient in the intensive care unit, and we delicately balance the electrolytes, and we stabilize the cardiac function, and we eradicate the infecting organism, and occasionally the patient survives. And what I'm really saying to you is that if you love this planet, and I'm deeply in love with it, and you watch the spring come, and you watch the magnolias flower, and the wisteria come out, and you smell a rose, you will realize that you're going to have to change the priorities of your life if you love this planet.
Mayday, Mayday, this is Commander Rick calling Earth. Come in, you surface dwellers, you prisoners of gravity. Is anyone listening to me? Please remain calm. Greetings, prisoners of gravity. How are you surface dwellers doing this week? Welcome to my home away from home. I'm settling in quite nicely, thank you very much. I've got my environmental systems replenishing my oxygen supply. I'm starting to recycle my waste and my water. And I sent out my change of address cards, proving once again that home is where you magnetically affix your hat. I've been tuning into the world's TV signals. Got nothing else to do, and I notice everybody's starting to talk about the environment. Oh, the environment is news, says everyone. News? Finally, it's news. Science fiction and comic books have been talking about the environment for years now, but not people on Earth. Oh, no. You have a oil spill off Alaska, you have some algae growing in the Adriatic, a couple of Russian submarines sink to the bottom of the ocean, and suddenly everyone's concerned about the undersea environment. Jules Verne was writing about the undersea environment in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea way back in 1870. John Wyndham wrote about undersea invaders in my favorite science fiction book from the 50s, The Kraken Wakes. Here the invaders try to drown us by melting the polar ice caps. Now meteorologists tell us the greenhouse effect may do the exact same thing. Undersea ETs of a much friendlier sort were the subject of the $40 million movie The Abyss. The story's based on a short story that writer-director James Cameron wrote when he was a 17-year-old high school student in London, Ontario. Ontario, Canada, he's Canadian. Yay, shh, yay, Canada, shh. Proving once again, save all your writing. In another strange environment, a never-completed nuclear power station in Gaffney, South Carolina.
The major location was a 7.5...
2,000 feet underneath the Caribbean Sea. Director Jamie Cameron had to cover the tank with a 200-foot tarpaulin. Well, okay, he didn't have to do it, the crew did, but you know what I mean. And then they poured millions of balls all over the surface of the water. That way the divers could slip through, but the light couldn't. Huh? Hey, they're from California, but they're not all stupid. The characters of the Rocketeer comic book, like the characters in the Batman movie, live in an environment that's heavily influenced by industrial designer Raymond Loewy. Raymond Loewy was the 1930s industrial designer who gave us streamlined locomotives, streamlined cars, streamlined office buildings. These things look like they're going somewhere even when they're sitting still. Loewy's designs have influenced everything from the Jetsons toilet seat to Flash Gordon. Yes, all you space cadets, it's time for our weekly dose of Flash Gordon. Flash!
Baron, what happened? Ming took me prisoner. We've got to get off and get back to the laboratory. Come on.
Is he all right, Doctor?
He will be in a minute.
I'll help Baron here with his chains.
Work fast, Doctor. We're sure to be attacked. That's why I came here. I can find means to defend this place against attack.
Well, in this particular film, Visual Futurist was the job of inventing a alternate reality in which this particular film takes place. Blade Runner is broadly the sociological impact of advanced genetic research producing exact duplicates of human beings. I suppose I was picked to do the design for the vehicles and some of the other ideas because of my industrial design background. Essentially, I have done for corporate clients what I did for the movie Blade Runner, which is to invent a believable reality at some point in the future, whether it's a car or a watch or a cruise ship or an airplane or a building.
If you love Sid Mead's work in Blade Runner and you want something you can drool over, check out this book, Oblong. It's chock full of his drawings that he's done for General Motors, for the movie Blade Runner, for the movie 2010. Wild stuff, eh? Can you imagine if this guy did your rec room? Robo Basement. Another film that required creating a completely new environment was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Since they couldn't actually shrink the kids, what they had to do was expand the rest of the environment up. Creating an environment that is both believable and seamless requires a lot of imagination, a lot of money, and in this case, a lot of big pieces of styrofoam. The styrofoam was no problem. To save money, they went and filmed the movie in Mexico. And as for imagination, well, take a look at this.
This is a typical...
The universe has to be believable and logical. The real world doesn't have to be at all, and it isn't. I locked into the signals being sent back from the Voyager spacecraft of Neptune. I've been watching since Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter. Voyager cost Americans 20 cents each a year, and man, did they get their money's worth. Talk about strange new worlds and civilizations. Now, some environments don't exist anywhere. They're just computer drawings. They're just signals in a wire, strings of electrons, phosphor dots all over a screen. Creating alien environments is what comic books do best. After all, if you gotta fill a page, Superman's Fortress of Solitude doesn't take any longer to draw than a gas station. Although it does take a lot more imagination. In the 1960s, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee created the Marvel Universe. There are now 40 stories a month chronicling the adventures of the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, and all the other characters who inhabit that universe. If you're looking for a comic book with a fully realized and very well thought out alien environment, I can do no better than to put you on to Incal. Incal took 8 years to make. It was written by Alexandro Jodorowsky. The artwork is by Jean-Giraud Mobius. It's available in the original French or in English from Epic Comics. It starts with a small discovery and it ends with an apocalypse. But it's a happy apocalypse. It's a very imaginative but very believable universe. This is a great comic. Woo.
All the stuff, this was a lot of new stuff at the time, and the special effects, and Eddie Keyes, who was one of the key people in the special effects department, was responsible for this work, and they geared themselves according to what Raymond had drawn in his comic strip. The mock-up of the spacecraft, you know, was taken almost verbatim out of the script, lifted out of the costumes and everything. It was hit and miss type of thing. Of course, they've done the foggy thing, the dry ice, you know, because they've done a lot of the haunted house things out there at Universal and stuff like that. One of the things that impressed me, I went home one night, and this is one of the nights that I got home a little earlier than usual, maybe at 9:30 instead of 10:30, and happened to pick up and look through the following day's work, which was a couple of weeks after we'd been into the thing. And they had a scene where, once again, I'm captured by Ming's guards, and they bring me into this electric chair room, and they strap me to the electric chair, and conveniently there's an idol on a table right alongside of the electric chair. Ming comes in through the door, with the ray gun, and he says, "Aha, Flash, again I have you in my power, and now I'm going to show you the power of this ray gun." And he turns the ray gun onto and the statue melts before your very eyes.
How did they do it?
So that's what I thought.
Yeah.
How did they do it?
Oh,
So I
beautiful.
rushed before 7, I went over to special effects to Key's office. I said, "Eddie, how are you going to do this shot today?" He said, "Very simply, I'll show you." He had made a cast, and he put in a steel dust in this cast.
Steel dust, yeah.
Magnetized it.
Yes.
Took the thing away, painted the idol any way that he wanted to paint it.
Which
and
is
once he
magnetized.
broke the contact, it just melted before your eyes.
Oh, my gosh.
The light bridge was a thing, you know. Ming would get up on the top of one palace of his to go to another part of his throne room or another part of the castle. The light bridge, he'd press a thing, ding, hit the other side. He and his retinue would go across. He'd reach around, turn it off. No light bridge. How'd they do that?
Yeah.
They shot it against a backdrop. And they took individual frames and scratched off the emulsion, little by little, a little bit more in the next one, a little bit more in the next one.
Again, there's a parallel because in Nogan's Run, the elimination process was done by carousel.
Roll 37, sound roll 12. Ray Bradbury, take 1.
There could only be one man who would have a place like this, and it would have to be Ray Bradbury. What an honor to meet you, sir.
Thank you very much.
After all the stories in the years, the pulp magazines and the slicks that I've read, the hardcovers.
Well, your introduction reminds me of a day I went back to my hometown, Waukegan, and I walked up on the lawn of my grandparents' house and picked a dandelion. And a woman came out on the porch and looked down at me and said, "If I see a strange man picking a dandelion on my lawn, it's got to be Ray Bradbury." I said, "Yes, ma'am."
A quote here. You say you've written every day, at least I've read this and you've told me this, I think for the last 50 years. And if you get to a typewriter by 9 o'clock in the morning, by 10:30 a.m., you're protected against the world.
That's right.
Now tell me about that.
Well, we're surrounded by reality, aren't we? And a lot of people think I don't pay attention, which of course I do. I've been watching Beijing the last 2 weeks and crying as much as any of us. How can you not sit in front of the screen and have tears burst from your eyes? It's so terrible.
Yeah.
And you don't even know the people, do you? But they're there and you do know them.
Yeah.
So my job is to do two things. Not only get you through the night, but get you through the day, which is even more important. So if I can find the metaphors to apply to terrible problems without pontificating, without trying to change you, my metaphor, if it's good enough, can help you.
American Splendor is a looks like a comic book, but the content is not typical of, by any means, of comic books. I use frames, or panels, and I, put dialogue in balloons and thoughts in balloons. But it's a realistic comic book. It's autobiographical, and it deals with mundane events that most writers, not only comic book writers, but fiction writers as well, and possibly autobiography writers, consider too mundane to deal with.
Oh, American Splendor, because I get to read about myself. Find out what I've been doing and things like that.
Mayday! Mayday! This is Commander Rick calling Earth. Come in, you surface dwellers, you prisoners of gravity. Is anyone listening to me? Please remain calm. Do not panic. Stay inside your homes, at least till the show's over, okay? And please don't adjust your set, because this is as good as it gets. I used to be an Earthling, just... Greetings, prisoners of gravity. This is Commander Rick. How are you tonight? You're gonna have to speak louder than that. I'm 22,000 miles straight up. Okay, you're lying in bed alone, and you're going over an argument you had today, and you suddenly think of a great insult that would have won the argument for you. Ah, if only you could go back in time. It's the ultimate fantasy, time travel. Okay, it's one of the ultimate fantasies. Everybody has written about time travel. Mark Twain wrote about time travel in A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur Court. Washington Irving wrote about time travel in Rip Van Winkle. Kurt Vonnegut wrote about time travel in Slaughterhouse-Five. It's one of the top 3 themes in all of science fiction, right next to space people invade Earth and Earth people invade space. You see, science fiction is all about what if, and time travel is all about what if.
Oh, in terms of theories? Time travel theory?
Relativity, the 4-dimensional structure of space-time, the mathematics exists for, let's see, Einstein's special theory of, or general theory of relativity.
It can be used to explain the Wayback Machine, right?
Right. Yeah, well, Mr. Peabody. Basically, mass distorts space, so space can be distorted. If you have a dense enough mass or powerful enough mass spinning, then space gets twisted, directions get twisted, and since time is just the 4th dimension, it becomes theoretically possible that if space is distorted enough, a movement through space becomes a movement through time. So there is, it's not just some sort of mad dream some science fiction writer came up with once. This is something that makes theoretical sense within Einstein's theory of relativity.
Albert Einstein has written a science fiction time travel story called Quantum, due out in the spring of 1990. He and his wife Judith also write science books together. They have time travel all figured out. Now, basically, there are 3 kinds of time travel stories. Yes, I know there's exceptions. I said basically. Okay, first of all, people from the future come back to now being 5 or 10 years either way. Second, people from now go off into the future. Or third, people from now go flying back into the past. A great example of the first kind of story, people from the future coming back to now, is John Varley's short story, Air Raid. In 15 pages, Varley sucks your breath out and just leaves your eyeballs dangling down your face. It's a great story. It was expanded out to a novella, and then the novella was expanded out into a movie script called Millennium. There's a very strong, self-confident woman, but before she can go traveling through...
Difficult to interpret what it might be. The difficulties really lay in interpreting what Varley had originally written. For instance, initially his leading lady character had...
Time and again, TV executives love time travel. Oh, great, finally we can use those Roman togas we've been saving since Spartacus. Doctor Who's been zipping through time for 25 years in his telephone booth-shaped time machine called the TARDIS. That's 25 of our years. The best time travel stories don't ignore the problems and the complications of time travel. They revel in them. A perfect example is the new show, Quantum Leap. It's on NBC and Global. Commander Rick likes this show because the hero of the story, Scott Bakula, has to actually go back and make changes in time, not prevent them. And when he's made the right change, zap, he jumps again. Along the way, he's helped out and screwed around at the same time by a hologram played by Dean Jagger and by a computer named Zelda. travel stories are the ones about people from now going into the past. There was